My daughter-in-law threw out the food in my kitchen. Story. I am a good baker. I enjoy making sweet treats for everyone to enjoy. Whenever the grandkids visit, I usually make cookies or something sweet to make their stays more fun. My daughter-in-law, Emily, is very health conscious, and even more so now that they have 2 kids. She is the type of person who avoids sugars, mostly eats organic, and avoids processed foods. And she's passing on these principles to her children, my grandkids. Every single time they come over and she sees the sweets I made, she goes on these rants about how they are unhealthy, fattening, bad for their teeth, etc. We got into an argument about this a few months ago about not giving the kids junk. I pointed out everything is homemade, and I am not only serving them cookies, but actual meals as well. My son stepped in on this, and we compromised that each of the kids can have 1 cookie when they are here. This was good for a while until yesterday. The kids came over last night and I made a batch of cookies. They were freshly baked, so I left them to cool on the rack. Emily and my son decided to chat a bit in the kitchen without anyone else present. During that time, without my knowledge, Emily went and threw away the cookies. When I found out, I asked her why she did it, and she claimed she was doing me a favor since they are unhealthy. I yelled at her, saying that she had no right to throw away food that I had worked hard to make. She got defensive and said she was just trying to help. My son stepped in and told me to calm down, but I was furious. Emily left the room in tears, and now my son is saying I overreacted and should apologize. I told my son that I will not be babysitting until he handles this situation, and I will not apologize. Who was the a-hole in this situation? Response 1. NTA. If your mother wants to have a say in naming a baby, then she should have another baby. She was unnecessarily rude and disrespectful to you, your wife, your ILs, and your child. I'd seriously consider going no contact with her if she doesn't change her behavior, as your son will pick up on it as he grows up, and it is not acceptable to expose your family to her. Reply 1. At the very least, very low contact is being considered if she and my dad cannot let this go. I do not want them insulting my kids' names to their faces in the future. Reply 2. This is where she's been incredibly stupid and short-sighted. I could never complain about my grandchildren's name. I'd just be too happy and delighted they were safely here, healthy and ready to spoil and make a fuss of everyone. Excited for future babysitting and times together. Reply 3, and it isn't a way out there. Name, like Run Triffids Run, is a name that merits at least some gentle questions, and I know someone who adopted that name for themselves. Hollis isn't even that unusual, just a bit uncommon. Reply 4. I find that grandparents who get to spend time with their grandchildren don't go questioning their child/child-in-law's parenting decisions. Reply 5. My thoughts exactly. The naming of my grandchildren was 100% up to my daughter and her husband. I named my children. They should have the same honor with theirs. Response 2. NTA. Tradition or not, this is your child. And any future children, no one gets to tell you what you should name your child. You could say, well, parents, that was your tradition. We decided to start our own tradition as a family. Personally, I love the name Hollis. As for mom, unfortunately, this might be a deal breaker in going limited contact or no contact. You will have to set the example. Let parents know right off the bat that calling your child anything else than his name will not be tolerated. If they are at your place, you get up and show them the door. If you are at theirs, you get up and leave. Same with any outside venue or relative's home. If you are at relatives' home who are on mom and dad's side, you can let them know your boundaries as well. Curious, what was the middle name? Because I actually like either father's name as a middle name. Reply 1. Very low contact is being considered over this. It will depend on what the reaction after this is like, and whether they stop or continue insulting our son's name and my ILs and my wife and myself. We didn't use either father's name. We considered a few but went with Cameron in the middle ultimately. Reply 2. Your mother is prioritizing being confrontational about a decision that only concerned your wife and you, and the child obviously, but the little fella has no say in it so far. Instead of being supportive for your small family, she adds to the stress of baby raising by being a huge baby herself. Personally, I think she might bring this up so much out of jealousy because she had to follow tradition and probably could not name you the way she wanted to. But if she keeps fixating on how much she hates the name, she might end up disliking your son. Be on the lookout for any future favoritism towards other children in your extended family if you decide to let her be involved in your son's life. Reply 3. OP should ask his mom what name she wanted to give him if she hadn't had to follow tradition. I know my parents have remembered the top alternate names and the name they'd have given me if I'd been a boy. Reply 4. Your mom has insulted everyone in your family for a long period of time and you're still debating if having a relationship is worth reply 5. I'm going to guess this isn't the first time your mother/parents have been controlling. You need to make it very clear to them that any interference is not welcome and won't be tolerated. Tell them that the next time they utter a single critical word about you, your wife, your in-laws, or your parenting choices, they will not see you for at least 6 months. No contact, no photos, no nothing. If they can't regroup in those 6 months and accept that you're an adult capable of making your own decisions, the break might be permanent. I would also never invite them to another special event. Your mother thought nothing of throwing a tantrum and ruining what should have been a special day. Don't ever give her the opportunity to do that again. No holidays, no birthdays, no soccer games. If you're going to see them, it should be a random Tuesday, and the visit should immediately end the minute she says a single passive-aggressive thing. Response 3. Well, OP, you couldn't have handled it any better. I'd send her a text or email, something written, telling her that you are aghast at her insulting spewfest and you're leaving the ball in her court. When she presents you and your wife with a heartfelt apology for rudely overstepping and a promise never to do it again, you will resume contact. Until then, you have nothing more to say. Reply 1. And copy Dad, and potentially siblings if they are likely to be incorporated as flying monkeys, so that Mom can't change the narrative and Dad understands the parameters, especially if you have to show Mom the door. If he's her ride, he may have to leave too. Response 4. NTA. It's as simple as this. If the kid isn't theirs, they don't get to decide the name. If they have a naming tradition, it doesn't matter. Still not their kid, so it's not their decision. They have no right to insist the name be changed, and they shouldn't get crap talking the name, you or your wife, for picking that name and not a name they wanted you to pick. Tell them to either grow up and accept the name, or they can look forward to not seeing their grandkids. Reply 1. This is all it comes down to. Your parents had their opportunity to name children how they wanted when they had their kids. I don't understand why some people feel like everyone needs to adhere to whatever standards they themselves have chosen to adhere to. Response 5. NTA. And since she hates the name so much, it seems she hates the child attached to it by extension. Honestly, I would tell her that it's fine. Since she dislikes the name so much, she doesn't get to see the child attached to it until she calms her crap. I'd be worried about her calling him Jack behind your back, and you wouldn't even know until your son can speak and tell you what she's doing. Response 6. NTA. She also said my ILs must be so smug, thinking they'll have at least 2 stupidly named grandkids, like they had all stupidly named kids. I lost my temper. I told her to shut up and accept that we're not naming our kids like she and Dad named me and my siblings. And I told her she would need to leave and learn to be more respectful because I would not take those insults against my wife or her family lying down. My mom hated being told to shut up, and she said I had no excuse for rudeness to her face. I thought she was crazy when she was rude. Your mom kept at it after being told to stand down. And in this case, if you were an a-hole, you are, in my humble opinion, a justified a-hole. Reply 1. This isn't even about tradition. This is about OP's mom putting herself into competition with daughter-in-law's family. Classic case of rival in-laws. Reply 2. Ding, ding, ding. She's projecting. She thinks they are taking IL's side. And it only appears that way to her because the ILs are not being as difficult and critical as they are. Response 7. Good for you and your shiny spine for defending yourself, your wife, and baby. Congratulations, by the way. Your parents got to name their kids. Now you get to name yours. That's how it works. Edited to add, you're so not the a-hole. Response 8. NTA. I wonder if this is less about names and more about losing to the ILs. She sounds like she's afraid they will have more influence over you than she does. Okay, maybe influence isn't strong enough. It's power/control. Some people are like that. Nonetheless, what she did was rude as hell, and I'd be hurt and angry too because how dare she? Good luck. OP, reply 1. I think that is some of it for sure. She feels like we chose a side instead of choosing our own taste. Reply 2. Plus, by having a family name, she can feel like she has some ownership over the grandchild and a closer relationship to them than your in-laws. Very much about competition. Reply 3. I am on mobile, so hopefully the spacing isn't weird. I completely understand going low contact, not the a-hole. I would be very cautious about leaving my child alone with my mother if I were in your situation, simply because I could see her picking a name and calling him Jack or Parker behind your back because that's what she thinks your son's name should be. We had a similar thing happen when we were naming my son. There's a tradition in my family that you give the firstborn son the same middle name as their father. So my son's middle name would have been David in that instance. However, my husband's family is Jewish, and apparently, according to my late mother-in-law, rest in peace, giving him that name would be considered bad luck because my husband's stepdad's name was David, and naming a child after a living relative is considered bad luck. We went around in circles for months, and it sucked. We just picked a different name because at the time it seemed easier, but I still hate to this day that my son's middle name isn't David, and I wish I had stood my ground. Response 9. Your parents are just stubborn old people, expecting the values they put on their traditions to naturally transfer. Mother needs to be put in place though. If she doesn't back down, give her an ultimatum you can stand firm on. Then it's her choice. Reply 1. I think a lot of it is boomers never liking the traditions, but never feeling like they could go against them. Younger generations are doing things differently, and the boomers are jealous. Very I suffered so you must suffer too mindset. Traditions is just peer pressure from dead people. Reply 2. OP's parents are probably in their 50s. Solid Gen X. Stop calling everyone you disagree with a boomer. Response 10. NTA. You people are being a-holes and somehow think that's going to make us want to name a kid after you? Response 11. NTA. What to name your child is your decision to make. Your parents will just have to make their peace with that. Response 12. NTA, it's your kid, and the only two people who have a say in naming it is you and your wife. You're both in agreement on the name, and that is what matters. If your parents don't back off, I would suggest lowering contact for a while. It just seems like a lot of stress during a time that should be focused on enjoying your son's start in life. Maybe some space will put things in perspective for your parents. Your son's name is nowhere near as important as his health and happiness. That should be what his grandparents want and care about above anything else. Response 13. NTA. No excuse for rudeness to her face. Ma'am, you have been nothing but rude. Sounds like your mother doesn't understand that you're grown and she can't demand blind respect and you do as she wants. It never ceases to amaze me that a grandparent can be so fussed over the name she isn't letting herself enjoy the new baby. Response 14. Tradition is peer pressure from dead people. Tell your mother that if the best reason she has for doing things is it's traditional, then she needs to stop doing things. And that it's fine for her to disagree with the way you raise your kids, but after she's shared her view once, she only gets to share it again on her way out of the door, not the a-hole. Response 15. Where did this long family tradition start? It was from your GRX4 grandma, who chose a name she wanted. Just start your own tradition. Your wife and her family have no problem. She is a control freak. Response 16. I don't get why parents like this think they are entitled to tell their kids what to name their kids. We didn't get to choose our names, so nobody has the right to take that same gift from us. If kids end up not liking the name, they can legally change it later, because yes, some people do give their kids atrocious names. But that's a different sub, not the a-hole. Response 17. All this fuss over names. Until I started reading Reddit, I never knew there were so many people who thought they had a right to give input to the name of a child that isn't theirs. In real life, I have never heard of any baby name drama, not the a-hole. Reply 1. I was always aware people could be a little opinionated when it came to other people's baby names, but never realized someone could go as far as my mom. Response 18. Well, you can't respect those who disrespect you. Naming your child is solely the parent's decision. It's not a family debate where the majority rule. Sure, everyone has different opinions on different names, but ultimately, they are just opinions. Mom's tantrum isn't going to get her what she wants, just alienate her from her grandchild. Response 19. NTA, insulting my baby and spouse to my face is a quick-fire way to guarantee you will never see me or them again. I would have politely told her just because she was too dumb to come up with original names doesn't mean you and your wife are, and she doesn't need to worry about what name he has since he is no longer a part of her family. Response 20. NTA. I thought you were going to say your son was named something bizarre like some celebrities do. Hollis wouldn't be in the top 10 of my list of names for a son, but it is perfectly acceptable. Your mother is probably most upset because she has had to realize you are no longer 5 years old and are able to think for yourself. Preventing kids from eating things they're not allergic to because it creates unhealthy relationships with food, but I accept that as long as the kids are physically healthy, it's not my place. By openly disrespecting the parents' rules, you're creating a rift between the parents and yourself, and you lose the ability to give the kids a supportive adult. If the kids get upset about not having cookies anymore, a simple, I personally don't get it, but this is your mom's decision, and I respect her. Why don't we see if we can make something she'll approve of that we'll like too? Is a great way to show kids that we can respect people's decisions even when we don't understand/agree with it. The kids will grow up and decide to either follow in their mom's footsteps or eat whatever they want. It's most likely the latter, and if you handle this right, the kids will be showing up at yours with their first wages, asking for the cookie recipe. Maybe they'll maintain a good relationship with daughter-in-law as adults. Maybe a rift will have formed between them, but at least you can hand on heart say you had no part in it. If you truly enjoy babysitting and spending time with your grandkids, I'd recommend looking up healthy snacks and talking to your daughter-in-law about the recipes you find. See if there's a compromise you come to where you can still bake for the kids and keep your daughter-in-law happy. Reply 1. I get she's grandma, but they've said over and over, please don't make cookies. If you really like baking, get curious about healthy baked goods and stop it with the cookies. Reply 2. This is the comment I was looking for. Everyone is completely ignoring that the grandparent was repeatedly ignoring parent preferences because they want to bake. Even though there was a compromise, what was happening with the rest of the cookies after the kids had their agreed single one? I'm assuming that OP was either still skirting the rules and giving more cookies, or was holding on to them for themselves/friends later. If it was the latter, then why couldn't OP just make the cookies a couple of days before or something? Store the extra out of sight and give the kids their one treat. Maybe freeze the cookie dough in portions and just pull out one each to bake fresh each time kids come over if she wanted fresh baked for them. I agree that they should be having a chat about what a healthy cookie is. Find some recipe that works for everyone. My aunt makes super healthy cookies all the time, though I have a feeling that daughter-in-law may possibly say otherwise due to the small amount of chocolate chips. All any of this seems to be doing is creating conflict and most likely confusion with the children. And as you and others have said, this creates an unhealthy relationship with food. Reply 3. This is really insightful, and I agree. There are things I don't want for my kids, and my parents fully respect it. They don't agree with every decision we make, but they agree with it. There's a reason why my husband and I don't take our son to our in-laws' house, because they don't agree with a lot of things that we put down. Now, some of the things that we have put in place is that we don't want our son to be spanked, where my in-laws are the spare the rod, spoil the child scripture people, and spanked him when he was having a tantrum at 20 months old. Until my in-laws want to respect the parenting style we have put in place, they will not have access to our son, and they will not have overnights with him unless supervised by my husband or I. You don't have to like what your children have in place for their children, but you have to respect it. They're the ones who are actively raising their child, and they're trying to do what's best for their child as they see fit. It doesn't mean that everything is right. I don't fully agree with keeping cookies away from children, but that is the decision the parents came to. I will say that Emily did not have a right to throw away the cookies. I do have a sneaking suspicion that you were going to give more than one cookie to the kids because you made a whole tree of them, which indicates more than one. It still doesn't mean that Emily should have done what she did, nor should you say what she said. I agree with everyone sucks here. Response 10. ESH. Emily had no right to throw something away in your home. She agreed to the one cookie decision, and it sounds like it was adhered to during this visit. There was no reason for her to escalate. My son stepped in on this, and we compromised that the kids can have one cookie when they are here. They are the parents, not you. No one has to compromise with you when it comes to the kids. The fact that you even argued with her about her decision as their parent is ridiculous. Now, if your son and her want to work the cookie situation at home and come to a compromise, that is fine. Why not find another way to connect with your grandkids? Or put effort into learning a treat recipe that fits their diet choice. That would have actually been a nice thing for you and daughter-in-law to collaborate on. Reply 1. DL doesn't want kids to have cookies at all, but Grandma makes sure the whole house smells like fresh baked cookies and they are cooling on the counter when they visit. So of course the kids are going to want cookies, and now Mom has to either let OP undermine her parenting or be the villain and Grandma be the sweetie. She's a cliche, crap-stirring mother-in-law causing dissension in her son's marriage. She hates her daughter-in-law and is using baking and the grandkids to F with her. Reply 2. This is the full spectrum answer. Everyone is focusing on the throwing away and overlooking that OP forced an issue that she had no place to do so from the beginning. The daughter-in-law seems unreasonable and was obviously wrong to throw away someone else's food/hard work. OP doesn't get to make parental decisions. OP went against their parental decisions so many times they forced a showdown, so their son had to come up with compromise between his spouse and parent. OP could have discussed approved treats with daughter-in-law and baked recipes that fit into that. Sounds like both OP and daughter-in-law are the type to not listen to others and do what they think is best regardless. Maybe family counseling or individual counseling to improve conflict resolution would help. Response 11. NTA, she is going to give her kids an eating disorder by labeling foods as good and bad. A healthy diet and a healthy relationship with food consists of moderation. Response 12. NTA, it's okay to be health conscious. It's okay to want your children to limit sweets and snacks. It's not okay to throw away other people's food because they don't agree with you. Daughter-in-law is an entitled a-hole and needs to do the apologizing. I'd even send her a bill for the cost of the cookies she threw away. Response 13. Downvote me all you like, but your daughter-in-law doesn't want them to eat cookies, so at this point you're making them every visit just to piss her off and criticize her parenting. Really, there's nothing else you could make for them, like date balls as a sweet homemade treat, that is a good compromise. Really, it just has to be cookies to dig your heels in and be the source of conflict? You are TA for that. Obviously, she's the AH for throwing away your food. That's terrible, and she should also stick to the compromise. Jesus, be nicer to each other. Edit to everyone sucks here. Reply 1. And what if she was making the cookies for something else entirely and was going to let each kid have one and take the others to her book club? Daughter-in-law didn't even ask. She just threw them out. That was beyond rude. Could OP maybe try to ask daughter-in-law for some approved recipes? Sure. But make no mistake, OP was not the one who walked into the home of someone doing her a favor and threw something that didn't belong to her away. That is such an move. Response 14. NTA, your daughter-in-law is very controlling and entitled. I would be furious. Ingredients are not cheap. She has no right to take it upon herself and disrespect your home. I would refuse completely to babysit. She needs to apologize to you for being so rude. Reply 1. A 12 ounces. Bag of chocolate chips can cost $4 on sale these days depending where you live. I would be so mad at the waste. Response 15. I would say everyone sucks here and everyone should present excuses. Indeed, what she did was wrong and disrespectful, especially considering the love, money, and effort that went into the making of the cookies. Throwing away good food with ingredients that are expensive these days was irresponsible, and food waste is a real scandal. But reading your story, it sounds like you don't respect the parents' decision to not feed the kids sugary foods. You probably have discussed this issue several times, shown disapproval, but hey, at the end of the day, they are the parents. They do all the decision-making on what they think is right for their kids, and you have to respect that too. It doesn't sound like you respect that though. You maybe don't share their point of view, but they are doing what they think is best for their kids. The little ones are not starving and they are well fed. Sticking to the one cookie compromise would be good, but you could also prepare something else if you really wanted to. It depends on what matters the most. Absolutely cooking something sweet because you think you are right and the parents are wrong. Or just doing a nice gesture for the kids by cooking something nice for them. And if it is the latter, I'm pretty sure you can find something amazing you could prepare that the parents will really approve of. Reply 1. It does sound to me like the daughter-in-law is frustrated over this ongoing situation. I would like to hear her AITA version of the situation, and she makes a whole batch of cookies for 2 kids and they are each only having 1. I am skeptical. Edited to correct spelling. Response 16. But if you know she doesn't want her children to have that stuff, why do you always bake it when they are around? She may have been the AH in this particular situation, but it is really an a-hole move to continue to bake every time they are there, knowing it makes her uncomfortable. Her kids, her choice. Stop trying to manipulate the situation. Response 17, ESH. You were repeatedly told what you give the kids is against the parents' wishes. It doesn't matter why you disagree. If they were vegan and you gave the kids bacon every time they visit because it's homemade and not the only food I give them, so they shouldn't be upset, no one would be on your side. So that's why you suck. She sucks because throwing them out and wasting food was an extreme measure. She obviously didn't even want to agree to the 1 cookie, and the kids would melt down if they saw them, and she just said no, which you knew, which is why you go to the time, expense, and energy of making 2. 3 dozen cookies for 2 to be given, and made sure they were fresh and hot, so they filled the house with the aroma and displayed them on the counter so they would be seen. If you were really following what they wanted, you'd have them in a cookie jar and ask parents each time before offering to the kids. I still think tossing the whole batch was unnecessary and extreme, but if my mother-in-law went so far out of her way every single visit to go against my wishes for my kids' diets, I might get fed up and do something extreme too. And you know what? I won't be babysitting anymore. She got what she wanted. You won't be giving them cookies anymore, and I don't believe for a second you only gave them 1 cookie each. To be clear, I think it's a little silly, and a couple to eat cookies a week won't even kill them, but neither my opinion nor yours matter. Just follow her instructions or stop seeing the grandkids. Those are the options. Response 18. YTA. You know damn well she doesn't want her kids eating junk, and every single time you go ahead and make them cookies anyway, knowing their mother is not okay with it. Stop making them cookies! Response 19. NTA. I understand the mom's concern, but a compromise was put in place where they could have 1 cookie. But even if she changed her mind, there was no reason for her to throw away all the cookies you just made. This was very mean-spirited of her. She's a nasty person. I am sorry, OP. Response 20. Sounds like they can't really trust that you will respect their food restrictions. Why they let the kids with you unsupervised is beyond me.